Hi, the name of this Blender video tutorial is GraphEditor. In the last video tutorial, we created a simple animation of various Blender transforms, moving, rotating, and scaling. In this tutorial, we'll examine Blender's GraphEditor window, which is the mechanism used to edit and refine an animation. To demonstrate the GraphEditor window, I've opened up the Blender file used in the previous video tutorial. This consists of an animation of a blue box object that moves from side to side while rotating about its z-axis 360 degrees. The red ball object moves up and down the z-axis, and upon hitting the box is scaled along the z-axis to appear somewhat squished. I'll stop the animation and go back to frame number 1. I'll first select the blue box object, then click on the Current Editor button in the lower left corner of the 3D viewport display, and select the Graph Editor. This displays the Graph Editor, which, as the name implies, presents a graphic display of the object's animation. To switch to the red ball graphs, I can click on the red ball object in the Outliner panel. I'll switch back to the blue box animation graphs. The Graph Editor is divided into two panels. On the left is a dope sheet summary of the various key sets of the blue box that contain animation keyframes. In this case, the object contains keyframes on its rotation key set and its location key set. The right panel contains a graphic representation of these animated key sets. This is called the Curve Editor. The Curve Editor contains a timeline similar to a timeline window running horizontally, and the change in any key sets is described by the curve vertically. I'll click on the View button, then View All. This displays the extents of all of the keyset curves for this object. On the left dope sheet, I will open up the Rotation keyset and select the Z Rotation key. This is the animation of the blue box 360-degree rotation around the Z-axis. Note that the curve starts at 0 on frame number 1 and rises to 360 on frame 50. Note also that the animation starts slow, builds up speed, and then eases into frame 50. This is because the animation by default follows this eased Bezier curve. Like Bezier curve objects, we can adjust the handles of the curve and thus adjust how the animation flows into and out of keyframes. With the Z rotation key selected in the dope sheet, I'll first right-click, select the left handle of the frame 50 control point or keyframe, then press the G key, grab, and adjust the curve coming into frame 50. It is sometimes difficult to see all of the curve handles, especially on frame number 1, which may have many overlapping control points. It's usually best practice to isolate the curve you are editing by hiding all of the other curves. You can do this by clicking on the eye icon for the various key sets or the various keys in the left dope sheet. Here I will hide all of the curves except the Z rotation. I'll then select the frame number 1 control point, and then select the out handle. Press the G key, and adjust its position. One easy way to eliminate any rotation ease is to isolate the curve as I've done here, press the A key to select all of the control points, and then press the V key and choose the vector handle type. This creates a straight line from one keyframe to another, eliminating the easing into a keyframe. I'll go back to the 3D viewport and play the animation. Note now that the blue box rotation is at a constant speed throughout the 50-frame animation. I'll go back to the Graph Editor. I will hide the Z rotation curve and unhide the X location curve. This is the animation of the location of the blue box along the X-axis. I will click View, View All to zoom in on the X location curve. Now, I've decided that I do not want the blue box to move along the X-axis. So, with the curve selected in the dope sheet, I'll first press the A key to select all of the control points, or keyframes, and then press the X key and delete the keyframes. This deletes the X location animation. I'll go back to the 3D viewport and play the animation. Note that the blue box remains in its initial position and does not move along the x-axis. I'll go back to the graph editor and this time select the red ball object. Here we've used one key set, location, rotation, scale, and the dope sheet displays each channel for that key set. I'll select the Z location curve and isolate it by hiding the other curves. I'll then press the A key, selecting all the control points, and then press the V key and select Vector Handles. This eliminates all of the easing from the curve. I'll hide the Z location curve and unhide the Z scale curve. This is the squishing scale animation of the red ball along the Z-axis at the point it hits the top of the blue box. I'll zoom in a bit by using my center scroll wheel. The red ball object scales a bit between frames 25 and 30, and then returns to its original scale between frames 30 and 50. Now instead I would like to unsquish or unscale the object between frames 30 and 35. Now to do this I need to add a keyframe at frame 35 and adjust the curve so that the Z scale returns to 1 at frame 35. To do this I'll first select the Z scale curve and then set the timeline to frame 35. I'll then press the I key and insert a keyframe on only the selected channel. This adds a keyframe on frame 35. I then select the control point, press the G key, and move it up to the level of 1. The Z-axis scaling of the red ball object now occurs between frames 25 and 35. Now I can refine this a bit by pressing the N key, which opens up the Write Properties panel. Here I can set the value for this key to exactly 1.0. I'll go back to the 3D viewport and play the animation. The red ball object moves down the Z-axis, scales and unscales between frames 25 and 35, and returns to its original position. The more you use the graph editor, the easier it will become to edit and refine your animations. Some key points to remember are, first of all, isolate the curve you're working on. Second, zoom in or view all so that you can see the curve clearly. Use your vector handle types to eliminate easing. And use the Properties panel to exactly place the position of the keyframes.